And then we're gonna jump in. So awesome. So thank you everyone for joining in today. My name is Ricky Randall. I'm the director of career development, director of career development and alumni relations at our Los Angeles campus. And then also I have online as well Kelly Lewis. She's our senior director of career development and alumni relations. So we work with students as well as our graduates, pretty much on everything professional development related, and making sure you can be as successful as possible within the industry. And so that means, while you're in college, making sure that, we're helping to send out, Kelly's always finding great internships, externships. Also, we've done some company site visits, and like we're doing today, we have really experienced professionals come in and talk with students and alumni about, how you actually break into the industry and what skills you need and what you really have to do just to set yourself up for success once you graduate. And even once you graduate, we're still here as a resource for you as you're looking for opportunities within the industry. And so I'm thankful that we have Sarah here today with us. She's actually an alum from our Los Angeles campus. And she's done some amazing things within her career. And so I'll let her go more in depth on that. But just starting out, thank you, Sarah, so much for being with us today. I'll let you just start off and just giving us just kind of an overview of, your time at CCH and, what you're currently doing now.
Cool, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having Ricky. Get some sort of. Hold on.
All right, hold on.
I don't know if you guys are picking up on that. I think there we go. That's better. So yeah, like Ricky said, I graduated CCH, the Hollywood campus, in 2010. I went there with the dream and goal of being a producer. I had gone to another film school before. The school just wasn't a great fit for me. Took some time off, but really never lost focus of what I wanted to do. I never had like a be this kind of producer. I just knew that I wanted to be a producer in the film and television industry. So I found Columbia College Hollywood. I really liked what the school had to offer. And so I went full-time for 4 years. I did all quarters the whole time, which was intense, but really good. I think it kept me focused throughout. But I really loved my time there. From everything that I learned, I still kind of reference back to a lot of the things that I was taught. Some things that honestly you think you're never gonna need again, but you do end up needing those things. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. I think what I got the most out of was my producing classes, of course, and learning from the teachers who were doing it at the same time that they were teaching. That hands-on experience was really valuable to me. So yeah, once I graduated, I kind of just knew I wanted to start working, and I just kind of went out and tried to find PA jobs and coordinating jobs. I was able to pick up a couple of those on production sets, which was great. And then I found myself in as a production coordinator in an office for a docu-series, which was really great hands-on experience. Being an office coordinator is different than a production coordinator out on set. Lots of different skill sets, but all kind of essentially the same thing. From there, I was given the opportunity to work at a visual effects company. And from there, I really found my passion for that art and technology combination that is in visual effects. I made that my new goal to be a visual effects producer. I then worked my way up and in through different companies over the years to where I'm at today, which is at Technicolor VFX in Los Angeles. We are a smaller vendor that has been expanding, and it's really been great to be a part of that. We used to do a lot of beauty work. We're now doing more hefty work. I actually have a reel to show you guys. which is exciting because it's a real, we don't show clients, we don't show the public. I had it made for us today. It shows some of the beefier CG work that we do. So I'm excited to show you guys that. But that's kind of like the gist of a little bit of an overview.
Awesome. No, that's perfect. So in that case, let's actually transition into let you show the overview of your work, just so the students can kind of get an idea of what you all do at Technicolor.
Cool. Yeah. So like I said, this is a reel from our LA office. Technicolor has offices in Vancouver and in London for VFX. Technicolor as a whole and post services is all over the world. So this you're gonna see, in case I wanna do a spoiler alert, there are some shots from Picard, which was the Star Trek CBS show. We just finished that. It's actually funny, we finished the work on that show the day before they sent us all home for safer at home. So it was a really interesting thing to see. Like, we were working hard, we were there all the time, but the work is fabulous, it pays off. You'll also see some beauty work in here, which I mentioned is what Technicolor has been known for, de-aging, aging up or aging down, just beauty work. There's a lot of that most people don't know about. So you'll see a little bit of that in here as well. But yeah, I'll go ahead and share the screen and play it. And afterwards too, willing to answer any questions, but let's see if this works. Did that work?
That was awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Kind of messed me up a little bit. I was watching a few of the shows I seen you from. I'm like, what? So that was kind of crazy. That was awesome though. So yeah, so talk about how you're at Technicolor. For you, when you were at Columbia College Hollywood, did you think that was going to be your type of trajectory, and how did that kind of work out for you with your career? Like, what was your goal while you were in college, and then did it look the same as where you are now, or did you have kind of a different perspective and you just kind of landed where you are now?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think when I went in, I always kind of thought of myself more as maybe an indie producer. I wanted to do weird shorts and documentaries. I was kind of into all of that, and I very much more was on the feature side, and felt like I wanted to be a feature producer. And so, to be honest, as I was getting closer to graduation, one of the things I did realize is, unfortunately, I needed to have a paycheck. And what I learned about the indie producing world and having to really put myself out there and make it happen for myself is something that I was still very much interested in, but I also wanted to try to find a way to get a steady job in the industry. To also, I always knew I wanted to get to the producer title and the producer role, and I knew how to work my way up for that. And I started to think about closer to graduation, for me, what is the fastest path to that producer role, to that producer title? And some of the things I learned from friends that had already been out there or teachers was that post-production did sound very appealing to me. And that I felt like I had some contacts as well that I could maybe use to my advantage to get into there. So I kind of was going that route. Can I get to be like a post PA and then become a post coordinator and then a post supervisor? And then, I was good with being a post producer. I never thought I'd end up in VFX. That was never something on my radar. It was interesting though, in school, I did approach a VFX producer that came in to talk to us one day. And we were doing, my thesis film had some fire, and I knew that we couldn't shoot fire. So we went and met with them. It was very interesting, and I was always into it, but I never thought that that's what I would do. So I did luck into that specifically. But yeah, I was just always open though too. I was always open to an opportunity that I felt I could learn from and that continue to go forward and hone in my skills. I think that's what the important thing is to be open. You may have a very good focus, and that's okay. And it's good to stay on that focus and on that route, because the more you stay at it, I feel like the more you're going to achieve that. But it's also like, if there's an opportunity that comes your way, and you can take it, because you never know where that's going to then lead you or who it's going to allow you to meet. that you have a common interest with that you can then help you to get down to that ultimate goal. So I think the main thing was I was open even during school, like things always changed. I like doing this. Oh, but I learned about that. So I kind of like doing that now too. And to just kind of soak it all in if you can, the best way.
No, that's great. And I know you mentioned, finding the right people to connect with, as far as like, building those relationships, for your career. For you, how did you approach that? Because I know a lot of times, students, they can be a bit, shy or not know how to take that first step to start connecting people. Or they may feel like, oh, I don't have my reel done, or, maybe I don't have a thesis project yet to show anyone. How should they approach that? Whether they're just starting out in college or they're later in the career within Columbia College.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of different ways to connect to people, and I think you need to find what's comfortable for you so that you can have confidence in that and that you can shine. Someone recently asked me about like pitches, and I never did pitches in the real world. I did them in school and I learned how to do them, but what that question made me realize is that I pitch myself all the time. In an interview, you are pitching yourself. In meetings, if you're talking to people creatively and you're wanting to talk about a story, you're also pitching yourself because you're pitching your ideas. So I do think it's important to kind of, even if you don't have a product to show someone, you have like your message and you have who you are and the skills that you have, and you can talk confidently about those. That other stuff is supplementary, right, to your ideas. And it's great to show that and have that. But if you don't feel like you can't talk to somebody, just in general, I do think networking events are important. They can be hard. They can be nerve-wracking, even for me sometimes still, but again, it's just about shaking hands and meeting people and getting your face and your name into their kind of world as well. I also think LinkedIn is a really, really good way to connect with people. And I've said it before, but like you shouldn't be shy about reaching out to like a recruiter at a production company that you're interested in, reaching out to the production manager at a production company. They're cold calls, but if you frame it as that you're interested in that company, you're interested in what they do, you're interested in how they create content, and you would love to learn from them and have an opportunity, it's all about how you frame things. And I think in the more positive light of that, you want to continue your skills and grow and learn versus can you give me something is very important to kind of see. But yeah, networking is good. Reaching out to people. I think when you do go to networking events, trying to follow up afterwards, if you get anyone's business card, business cards, some people don't think they're worthwhile, but I've handed out a lot of them and I have a box of them still, but I take them everywhere with me. And it's just a really quick way to be able to give someone your information. And if they have them, especially networking events, most people do, you can get theirs. And at the end of the day, you have them to go through and can visualize who that was that you talked to. But even there was a point where I wanted to get into VR. And so what I did was I just went to every VR and AR conference that there was. I had business cards made up. I went and I met as many people as I could. And I had some great contacts from that. So you just got to put yourself out there and don't be afraid. Just sell yourself, have confidence in your skills. You all have skills. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. So just, kind of use that as a tip.
That's awesome. And for you, once you graduate, what have you found to be, the difference? Because I think a lot of students, they may still be unsure, or they may not be clear on, what's the difference between, working like freelance. Because I think sometimes like, oh, I want to be an indie producer. I want to do my own stuff, not knowing that it doesn't equal out to like a steady paycheck or anything like that. So for you, what have you found to be the main difference between, going the freelance route versus like now working at an established, company, where you kind of have a set schedule and they have the projects that they're getting for you to produce?
Yeah, that's a great question. Freelance versus staff is a little bit different in every part of the industry. In production, for instance, you can be a freelance gaffer, DP, camera op, PA, and that just really means that you're getting picked up to work on a specific show for a certain amount of time. You can also then get like a coordinating job or a PA job at a production company, and they will put you on staff. Sometimes that staff job though is still technically freelance because it's only for the duration of the show. The industry is still very freelance heavy in most every avenue of it. VFX is very freelance heavy. Most visual effects vendors only carry a couple artists on staff, and a handful of production people on staff as well. And that's just because specifically in television, you're only going to work on a show for a certain amount of time, and you don't know if you're going to have an overlapping show coming in or how that's working to be able to keep someone on staff. They both have their pluses and minuses. To be really candid and honest, freelancers usually make more money. It's because the company doesn't have to give you insurance and all that kind of stuff. So it is something to be aware of, because it is, you have to supplement that on your own. I have been freelance. I am still technically a freelance contract artist or producer. So while I don't have an end date, I'm not a permanent staff member. So I'm in like a little weird state. When it comes to production though, most of my friends who work on set, some sort of camera department or production, they are mostly all freelance and they take jobs. But once you get that job, it's easy to get that next job because you meet those people and you work with that people. And it really does, like, it sometimes is really steady and sometimes you're so busy. Some of my friends, they don't have time between gigs. So that's the key too, is if you are freelance, is to keep making those connections with the people you're working with so that you can take that into the next job. Hey, he's going to do this next thing. He'll need a camera op. Let me come in there and get that next job, you know? But yeah, it's very different, but it is still very freelance heavy. But you can still have a really long freelance contract too, in a lot of ways. So I'd say, like, you know, don't ever turn down a freelance gig. Don't ever turn down a staffed gig if it's really what you want to do and it's right for you. You know, a lot of opportunities are worth just grabbing them and seeing what comes from it, because you really never know.
Well, that's great. And before we kind of transition, talk about kind of like what's happening now in the industry, like for you, just kind of taking a step back. I know you touched on it a bit, but you know, how did Columbia College kind of prepare you for what you're doing in your career or what you've experienced so far? What have you kind of still kind of tapped into from your studies, you know, while you were creating your own films, while you were at Columbia College and taking the classes there?
Yeah, one of the main things that I use on a daily basis, and I have since I've been out of school, is script breakdowns. I learned a lot of that in producing classes and in different classes, but the ability to read a script fast and break it down for what you need is a vital skill. And I use that in VFX. I have to go through a script and break down. I pull out what's potential VFX all the time. So I've really gone back to those kind of fundamental things. Same thing goes from like breaking down a script to like working on a schedule. Schedules are very important in our industry from whatever side you're on, is that you have a task, you have a production, you have to get everything together in a certain amount of time to be able to deliver. So I think scheduling on the production side, I mean, even the hands-on things, I've been at small companies where I've had to, you know, put monitors up and put computers together. So even the hands-on technical things, you know, that I'm glad at film school, you are supposed to take a directing class and a cinematographer class, and you have to learn everything. Specifically as a producer, I should at least understand what I'm asking you to do. And I think it's vital to understand, at least in the simplest terms, all the different jobs in our industry. But yeah, I mean, that's like some of those things. Scheduling is big, like I said. I think just working with people on set, working with the crews, even working with people in your classes, you know, it may be your script, it may be someone else's script, but you know, our craft is all coming together to create one project. So that those skills, which you don't even realize you're really honing in on, end up being really important because everything is done in a group. Everything is done collaboratively. There's no just one person sitting by themselves. Even in my field, there's one artist sitting on a box, but he can't do his job without everyone that surrounds him to support him or her to do that work. So the collaborativeness is, I think, an important thing. And I always pick up on the little tiny things that the teacher tells you that isn't in your lesson plan. Like, hey, there's this tip, or I did this, or this happened. Like, remember those things because they will. I can think back to teachers being like, yeah, do this or that. And you're like, oh, you're right. You totally are. So.
No, that's awesome. Okay, okay. And I know right now, things are drastically different. I mean, for all industries, or most of them, and definitely one of them has been the entertainment industry. So for you, in your area of the industry, and even like as you've been connecting with your friends in the industry, what has that shift been like for everyone? And what have you seen like to kind of expect as we kind of move forward through this?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think it is really important. As everyone knows, this is new territory for us all. And I do think our industry is the heaviest hit out of most of them because it relies on giant groups of people getting together, right? So, and in very close compact places. I was reading an article and they said, it's really actors, it's really the only job that you're required to kiss your coworkers. Like you have to be close to people in order to do your job. So I am lucky enough. I think most companies that I've seen have been able to take things remotely. That's on the post-production side. Netflix was one of the first to go completely remote. And all the big post houses have very successfully gone remote. They've even Technicolor Deluxe, Company 3, all the big finishing houses in LA have even created software for filmmakers to do their color sessions remotely. So I think the main thing that I feel is going to happen is ingenuity and creativity. It's up to you guys to figure out how to work within the parameters that we have, how to work with the guidelines that we have, and come up with new ways to shoot things, new ways to tell your story. You guys are all creative, and you just got to kind of start to think outside the box. This will lead to a lot of really cool stuff, I think, new content creation in a whole new way. But the problem is that there will be no traditional productions for still quite some time. I know that New Zealand is currently starting up some productions over there. I don't think anyone else has. Through friends and other people, I've been, there was a rumor about September being like a Fast and Furious, let's go shoot everything month. I think that's kind of gone away. From what I'm hearing now, everyone is furiously working. All the unions, all the studios, they're trying to figure out how to shoot. I do know it hasn't stopped things, though, specifically at the studio level. Writers' rooms are starting up virtually. They're doing everything to prep for production that they can in the television world. I think features is going to be a little bit harder hit, but TV will still figure out a way. Visual effects is something that will now become more robust because you're going to have to do background replacements. You're going to have to do crowd duplications because your sets, when they do start back up, will be limited. And you'll have, so VFX, we're already counting on and selling at Technicolor how we can now do all these extra things, which we've always done, but it's now packaged a little bit differently. I also think animation, which I'm sure you guys are aware of, but the animation companies have not slowed down. And they will continue to create new shows and new content. To be completely honest, I'm on a current show at Technicolor, but it has an end. And there is no more stuff in the can. We're starting to run out of what's been shot. So everyone is trying to figure out a new way to get, content. But there could be a pause in a lot of things for a little while once the shows that are shot are kind of run dry. I read an article that talked about the Zooms, the shows you're seeing getting on Zoom, and that's really fun and that's great, but you know, that's not a new standard. That won't be a like, we won't be doing that moving forward. It's a good kind of placeholder. But yeah, and at the end of the day, I think it's a great opportunity for our industry to come up with some new cool ways to shoot content and to show content. I do think one of the things I was reading about was, I think it's an interesting choice that could go both ways. Do we focus content on we are living in you know, a pandemic, or do we keep it back to normal? I mean, I do think that's a very interesting to think about too, for your writers out there and your directors, of like, what is the story? Is it current, or is it just like, let's get out of this for a moment? So I think both are very valid. But yeah, we have to figure out how to do production, and I know everyone's working on it, but it also has to do with permits and Film LA and all the different things that go along with the production. So, and liabilities, the studios aren't ready to put people back together again. So.
Awesome. So yeah, no, I definitely know it's, you know, it's uncertain times. So I think for everyone, you know, it can be like, all right, panic time. But I do know obviously there's more industries than just, you know, ours that has been affected by this. Any final thoughts you have, or just tips or insight you would give to the students, you know, on like really on what they, especially even in this time, you know, what they can be doing now, even though they can't be out shooting and things like that. What can they be doing now to use their time wisely? Besides just, you know, like a lot of us being on Netflix, you know, things like that all day, like as far as for their craft, what can they be doing now just to kind of, you know, use this time productively?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I know a lot of you are probably realizing what I am. It's like, you do have extra time. You have a little bit of extra free time. And I think for filmmakers, whatever, you know, job you have in mind, you have the time now to do some research, you know, to look into research, get everything ready for production. If you plan on shooting something, you should have everything prepped and ready that you can to just go and just be ready for it. I think you can have good plans. You can take the time to flesh out your stories. But also just like, I know there's a lot of content talking about Netflix, but there's a lot of indie and short films, and, you know, like Sundance is now going to be streamed. There's a lot of content out there that we can all use to help feed our own creativity. And I think using that as homework as well is very good. But I'd say, like, just try to stay focused. It's hard and it's not going to happen every day, and we all know that. But, you know, just doing everything you can to plan for when production is ready. Or like I said, come up with a new way. You know, it's interesting, all these shows that are shooting from home, like they have sent kits to these people's homes, but they don't work. You know, like it's user error. Like, could I set everything up? Probably not anymore. I wouldn't remember how to set a light up. I wouldn't remember, you know, things like that. And if you think about giving that to talent and having talent set up a camera and a light kit, you know, like even that, is there something you can figure out so that it's easier for us to shoot at home, that it's easier for us to set up a camera on our own? Like, I think there's so many different avenues that you can use your time and effort to try to figure out. You know, when the writer's strike happened years ago, that's what spawned reality TV, for good or for bad. You know, like it was, there's things that'll come out of this that will help everyone in the long run. We just got to figure them out. And I know you guys can do it. But yeah.
Before we continue, I just want to open up to see if anyone has any questions. If you want, you can pop the questions into the chat box, and I can ask those out verbally, or if you have any, free to pop on and ask any questions that you have for Sarah.
Yeah, anything, VFX, regular, whatever.
I might have a question for you. So I prepared a little bit and just try to read about you a little bit online. So I see that you've been working in this business for about like this 10 years. And for me, I'm very interested in directing in the future. Like I've been directing some shorts and documentaries. So as a VFX artist, what is the communication, or how do you communicate with the director or with the person who you are working with? Like, it is your job to find a solution for any idea that the director have, or is the director's job to give you like instruction, this is how I want it, or this is like, if you can just explain briefly.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I've worked on a lot of projects that you do start with the script. So you're starting with the director, something hasn't been shot yet. So in that case, you are working with that director, or sometimes, TV, it's a showrunner, features, it's going to be your directors and your producers. But yeah, I mean, usually sometimes we'll get some details. Sometimes we go in cold and I break down a script cold and I'll pull out every single thing that I think is a visual effect and I'll break it all down and I'll list it out and I'll review that with my supervisor for any kind of, what questions does he have? What does he need to know from that director in order to get the work done? So then what we'll do is we'll have meetings with the directors and we'll go through all the different, if there's big VFX sequences, but you've got no money, how can we make that happen? How can we use camera tricks, figure out how to do as much in camera? I mean, when you don't have a lot of money, that's the goal with VFX. It is to do as much in camera as possible because VFX can be expensive. And unless you really have the money and you need to have like a CG character, there is very creative ways, and it is our job to work with the directors to do that. And that happens a lot at the script level. And then we'll send out a VFX supervisor to be on set. And so they'll set up green screens, they'll make sure things are set properly. A lot of times we ask for clean plates. If I'm going to set up this scene and I'm going to put something behind me, I'm going to shoot it with me here, but then I'm going to shoot it without me here, right? So I've got a clean plate. And that's what your on-set VFX soup will help with. A lot of companies actually are willing to work with more indie people. You would be surprised. I would say smaller visual effects companies are always more willing to work with students or anybody like that. But yeah, it is a partnership. The director and the visual effects company should be a partnership. They should work together to get the best product at the end of the day and to stay on budget. I mean, whatever your budget is what I need to stay within if I can. So yeah, it's a very hands-on. And then throughout the process, on a feature, the director is the person that would give notes. So when I send a shot over, if it's not what you like, you're the person that gives that feedback. So at the end of the day, the director or the showrunner in television still holds a creative weight and the approvals throughout the duration of the work. And you are always working with that person and getting on the phone and trying to figure something out or having them come in and look at stuff. So it's a very collaborative effort.
Great question. Any other questions anyone has?
I can ask if I have the opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I should say thank you first for giving us this opportunity and listen to your experience. So my next question would be then, who are your inspirational sources? Like, is there any VFX artists that you've been like watching for most of your life? Or is there any production that you've been like watching this kind of production will like produce or do in the future? Like the inspiration source that you use to do your job, so your production.
Yeah, great question. Well, as a producer, I always, honestly, J.J. Abrams was a big role model for me. And this was, again, very much like 10 years ago, more than that. But I really saw how he was able to he was just very creative. I really liked his style. I thought he had great ideas. He had new ideas, and I really liked that all throughout my career. I was very lucky to work on a Star Trek film. And and I had an opportunity to have a little bit of hand in the first Star Wars that he did, and I was able to meet him, and it was a very big deal and very big deal to me. But he's always been kind of that goal. When it comes to art, I've always loved art. My father is an artist. This crazy piece behind me is actually his, but he's probably like, if I would say I have an artist that I look up to, it's him. But he gave me the skills to do what I do now. Growing up with him as an artist and being in the art community has led me to be able to be a good producer to artists, because I understand what they need to be taken care of. And that is one of my main jobs, is to take care of my artists. I value that. So I always make sure that they have whatever they need and they're taken care of. So yeah, J.J. Abrams was my like producer, role model, and yeah, good old dad for the art side. I think there's one question.
Yeah, so from Kyle, have you ever had a project that was so weird you thought, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this? I'm sure probably on the VFX.
There's been a lot. We get asked weird stuff all the time, and sometimes I have to be like, is this I was very lucky to work on Legion season 2, and I'd say it's some of the craziest visual effects I've ever done and produced in my life. That was a really challenging show because it was so out there, and most of the time they didn't really even know what they wanted. So I was like, we want it to kind of look like this. Let's figure it out. And that kind of goes back to your question. It's like you do have to figure some things out, because if it's new and visual, you have no idea how to make it work. So that one was really crazy. One time, so I worked on the show Dollface, which is actually a personal favorite of mine. I really enjoy it. It's on Hulu. I highly recommend you watch it. But there's a vegan chef on the show, and there's she's having a vegan book party. And in the background, she's walking with a steak in her hand, because it was some sort of joke that went wrong. Like, she's a vegan chef, but she's eating a steak like a popsicle, but it never played. It didn't go well. No one understood what was happening. So we had to paint the steak out of her hand. So we had to take the steak out of her hand in like 3 shots, and we added a lollipop. So we made it look like she was eating a lollipop instead of a steak. That one was pretty funny. I also have to use the term like Barbie dolls and Ken dolls when it comes to nudity, because you can't have nudity. But so when we have to do modesty covers like that, you have to ask clients weird questions. I'm sure you guys can, I won't take it there, but I usually have, does they need to look like a Ken doll? And they'll say yes. So there's lots of weird things. There's lots of paint outs, sometimes I worked on Vita, which is a paid cable show, and there's a lot of nudity in that show, and we actually add some of that. So it's weird. It just depends on the show. But we get asked weird things all the time. But yeah, like the craziest one was Legion, and trying to figure out the season finale for season 2. If you're a fan or you just even want to go watch that one, it's got some really crazy visual effects that took us a long time to do.
It's a good question. Any other questions you have? Feel free to pop on and ask them on video, or you can definitely pop in the chat and ask those as well. Let's see. So from Alberto, what's the project you worked on that you're the most proud of?
A really good question. I don't know. I think Legion. I do think Legion. It wasn't that it was the content. I love the content. I loved figuring out how to help everyone do that. But it was the hardest show that I've ever worked on. And I think because of that, because it was so stressful and because it was so challenging, looking back on it now, I'm proud that we pulled it off. I'm proud that we survived. I'm proud that it came out so beautiful. But it was the challenge, I think, that made me even more proud of it than some of the other shows I've worked on that were easy. I tend to always, for some reason, work on very challenging shows. I don't know what that means, but I I like those. I like the challenge, not just VFX, but filmmaking in general is a puzzle. And you got to figure out the puzzle. And it's got a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. And I really enjoy puzzles. So I really do like figuring it out, you know.
All right. So if we have one more question before we close out, give someone another chance to ask a question.
Yeah, can I ask? Is it possible? Okay. So I know it's been like more than 10 years. I'm gonna ask you more about CCH because I'm very interested, and I have one of my friends who just graduated, and I've been admitted now to CCH, so I'm very excited. So for me, my question would be, how was like the typical classes? I mean, as a VFX, I know that you already mentioned you touched all those like directing, producing, camera, and everything. But I mean, what do you exactly felt like? Okay, this is something that I actually proud of going CCH, and because I'm using those experiences and skills in your work environment. I mean, things that you learned, and what are the professor's style teaching you? Is it more like hands-on, or is it more like independent study that you actually have to take a responsibility for yourself, like for any project? And yeah, maybe just explain a little bit about your like experience at CCH.
Sure. Yeah. I will preface by saying I think the school is very different. When I went there, not for any different. I actually think things are have been improving since I've left. I've kept an eye on everything, and I'm really impressed by what CCH has to offer now, and what the campus looks like. I'm really happy to say that I went there. But I do think for me, the hands-on, I am a visual learner. I do think that those classes helped me the most. Whenever I would choose classes, you know, you do have certain classes you have to take and not as important, but the ones that I got to choose for my major, I made sure I was like super interested in them. And that I was excited about what I could learn. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I had a teacher that had just produced a feature film, and he basically took us back through how he produced that film, and we did everything that he did. It was so hands-on, and it was so first person, because it was real and there was examples that I learned more from him than probably any other class. But I really do think, you know, also it's important what you do outside of the classroom. And when I went there, they talked a lot about getting out on every set you can. And I preached that when I was in school. I'll preach that now. You need to get as much experience as you can. And everyone's always trying to shoot something when we get back, you know, and make a project, or even just helping read through a script with somebody, you know, just throwing yourself into it as much as you possibly can, and getting your hands, oh, hey, that guy needs a camera op, I'll do that for you. Or like, hey, you need a script supervisor? Sure, I can figure that out. You know, really just trying to get as much experience, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. Rent a camera and just go shoot stuff on your own, you know, practice setting stuff up. It wasn't at Columbia College, it was at the other film school I went to, but they made us all take a C-stand home with us. Like, you should know exactly, like, spend time with your C-stand, you know, like, make sure you know exactly how to put that up if someone asks you to do it. And that goes to a lot of different things. Like, you know, if someone is going to ask you to do something on set, you want to try to at least know it or figure it out, you know, try to figure out how to do things that maybe you didn't think you wanted to do, but you could learn that you like those as you go along. So just throw yourself in there, do as much as you can.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So we'll close out now. I just want to say thank you so much, Sarah. We just really appreciate you know, you taking your time, you know, to share your knowledge and your experience with us. And yeah, we're just always grateful when you come in and drop some knowledge on us. So definitely looking forward to having you back once we can be on campus, you know, and do some more events, and hopefully maybe even at that time, we're able to, Skype in, or just now that we are using Zoom now, maybe we can Zoom in the Chicago campus when we have you back on our campus again. So, so thank you so much. And thank you all who attended as well. And I know Brad is on the call. If you're thinking about, you're going to be attending CCH, then definitely, reach out to Brad. If you're currently a student at Columbia College Hollywood, please send an email to myself or Kelly Lewis. We'll definitely do our best to help you out. But yeah, everyone have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks Ricky for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for, taking the time to come out and listen. If you do want to get in touch with me, you can get with Ricky or one of the other staff to get my email address. I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions or chat with anything. So, but yeah, let me know. I'm available.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.